Looking back, I think I was lucky. As a novice paddler, I had no idea of the skills I needed to stay safe in the water, and I also didn't fully appreciate the risk. Today, I want to share some things I wish I knew when I first started paddling. If you're an experienced paddler, I am interested to see what resonates with you. And if you're new to paddling, I hope this helped you out. All right, let's get on the water. Come on, sun. That wind kicked my butt for a little while when the sun was in the clouds. It's really my fingertips and my toes. Despite my best efforts, they were getting a little cold there for a bit. It's a little bit better now, with the wind at my back. But I feel it. This trip I'll be on the leeward side of some of these islands when I explore them. So I hope to get a little bit of a break there, but that was gnarly. I left out of a town landing in Addison on the West River and paddled down towards the mouth of the river into Wohoa Bay. There are 4 islands I want to check out today: Mouse, Doyle, Daniels, and Sparrow. They're essentially in my backyard. This is the town over from where I live, and I get asked about these islands occasionally. They're on the Maine Island Trail, and I've never been because I typically go a little bit further out when I'm paddling. I don't stay this deep into bays. But today, being the middle of January, being between storms, yesterday was super windy and rainy. We've got this weird weather window today where it's kind of clear and supposed to be 40, and then a winter storm warning tonight for a foot of snow coming across New England. So with this weird weather window, with it being the time of year it is, I'm going to stay really deep in Wohoa Bay and add these islands to my knowledge base. Got a little forensic scene on the beach here with a seal bone. I suppose it could also be like a deer bone. We are at the mouth of a river, so I think a lot of different things could kind of wash up. I don't know anything about identifying seal bones. It's been there for a while. There is some, I think that's spiral rack growing on it. You can kind of see the leaves start to get a little bit wavy. And then a lot of barnacles. Look at those barnacles. It's been there for a while. All right, well, we're going to take this home and make stew. Okay? All right, brush yourself off. Oops, my skirt is open. Mouse is right at the mouth of Moosebeck Reach. And it looks like it's a pretty high island, which is nice. You don't have to worry about where you set up your tent and having the tide come in. But it's not very big, as you'll see. Also, being right at the mouth of Moosebeck Reach, I imagine in the summer at like 4 a.m. when the lobster boats are heading out, this is a highway. I bet this is not a great place if you're not an early riser, which I am not an early riser. All right, let's go check out Mouse. Plenty of sand, easy to get to, and only gets better with the higher tide. It's about what you would expect a grass-covered blob of an island to be. More carnage. These are definitely a lot fresher, newer than the one I saw earlier. The stew is really coming along. There is a little bit of grass if you need to set up a tent. Moosebeck Reach with Jonesport on the left and Beals on the right and bridge on the horizon. Looking out into Western Bay and the open ocean, and then coming back here into Wohoa Bay. Okay, well that was Mouse Island. About what I expected, being so close to down and being the size that it is. Would not be my first choice of places to camp. There would definitely be other things I would choose if I had a choice, but it's good to know it's there. It's good to know it's all tide access. I don't see any reasons to not get there at low tide. One of the first things I'd wish I had been told as a new kayaker is to not be afraid of getting the boat on an edge, to dropping a butt cheek and allowing an edge to really, dig into the water a little bit. And I think I was afraid because I didn't want to capsize. I wanted to keep the boat as level and steady as possible. And in doing so, I lost a bit of efficiency and I lost a little bit of comfort in allowing the boat to do what it needed to do. So I'd wish I'd spent more time exploring the edges of the boat, more time in the warmer months and in more protected waters, just really getting comfortable in a sea kayak of where my edges are and how comfortable I was maintaining an edge. I don't know if it held me back too much. I think it just made me less comfortable doing things in the boat, less confident in the boat. We are here on Daniels. Like so many spots on the Maine Island Trail, this is someone's camp. This is private land that this individual has allowed MITA members to use. So there's a little cabin here. Different islands ask for different things. Sometimes you got to contact the landowner and ask for permission. Sometimes it asks you to stay on one side of their land or their property or the other. But join MITA, get the app, get the book, figure out what the different needs are, requests are. But it's not terribly uncommon to see a cabin or a house on some of these islands, some of these camping spots. Doyle is lovely. Although it's a couple hundred yards away from Mouse, it just feels completely different. A little bit further away from town, a little bit more, like nourishing, quiet, protective energy. Yeah, wood camp. I would still expect the 4 a.m. wake-up call from the lobster boats, full throttle heading out to the fishing grounds, but if that doesn't bother you, it's a beautiful little spot. Nice little spot here at the top of a mound. Man, that sun feels good. Getting a little protection here from the island, from the trees. I got really warm, so I had to switch to an insulated baseball hat here because I was sweating it up. I think the honeymoon is going to be over once I get out. I can see the channel here and I can see white caps coming in from the north. So I think it's going to be a little blustery on that section of the trip, but soaking it in right now while I can. Okay, Doyle, I like you. We'll add you to the database. I am going to now head to the westernmost part of my trip today, to Daniels Island. This will be my longest crossing and probably the most uncomfortable section of the trip, as I think I'll be exposed the most. So let's get back on the water and jump over to Daniels. It was really picturesque and kind of bucolic up on that hill. It felt very calm, very settled. Landing is great, launch is great. It's a low tide access, might get a little silty, but you're not doing any rockweed shenanigans. Maybe at like dead low tide, it might get really goopy, but nothing I don't think would stop me from landing here. I'm at the edge of Doyle Island, and as I look at the chart, Goose Island, the one I'm kind of aiming for, is directly west on the chart, and that means it's 270 degrees. We add our 15 degrees of variation here in this part of the country, so I'm looking for something about 285, and I'm just turning my boat here, 285, and I'm looking directly at Goose Island. And I see 3 other small islands, Inner Goose, Outer Goose, and then an unnamed island that is close to Outer Goose. That I'm all seeing that track. So now I know with a lot of confidence where I'm going, and I'm gonna cross this channel and get through the Goose Islands. Wind's coming on my beam, so I'm going to put about half of my skeg in to try to counteract the weather cocking that's happening. The tendency for the boat to turn into the wind as you're paddling. For the most part, this would have been pretty indicative of a paddle I would have done early on in my paddling career. Something really deep in the bay, something with a lot of islands that I could pick the side that I was going to paddle on to be protected by the wind. I would not have early on done this paddle as a novice paddler in January, particularly solo, but got a different skill set now that makes me confident doing that. Bringing seaweed home for dinner, babe. Does not feel like the middle of January. Doesn't feel like spring either, but it definitely doesn't feel like we're in the middle of winter here. I will take it. I started paddling 25 years ago as a college student, and the best I could hope for was non-returnable expired Sea Kayaker magazines that were either going to be thrown away or read by staffers at break when I worked at Eastern Mountain Sports. So that's where I got quite a bit of knowledge on paddling, or as much knowledge as I could. I actually didn't get that much knowledge. I got as much knowledge as I could. You know, and I'd spent time on the water. I'd fished with my dad as a kid. I'd been in canoes. You know, it wasn't completely foreign to me. But I didn't have a great resource bank for knowledge. Nothing like exists today. Another one of the things that I wish I'd known at that time was really how to properly plan for the water temperature. And I got really lucky, friends. I remember one time going paddling in April, and I know it was April, it was actually Easter, because in town I could hear church bells ringing. And it was a pretty warm day, April day for southern New England at that time. But I was in a bathing suit and maybe a long sleeve sun shirt, because I didn't have a wetsuit. I didn't even have a dry suit. I didn't even have a wetsuit. Couldn't afford a wetsuit even. But I was out there, and while I was out there, I realized I shouldn't be here. This is not where I should be. And I played the game like, oh, I can swim back to shore if I need to. I'll stay close to shore. And if something happens, the hell with my boat, I'll just swim back to shore. And, best case scenario then, you're, not super close to help, and you're freezing cold and wet. I just got really lucky. I wish I had understood that. And in learning how to understand and mitigate the risks of the dangers of cold water, like the other things that I'd wish I'd known, it's just improved my confidence. It's given me a little bit bigger safety net. Getting buzzed by the long-tailed ducks. I love the sound they make, our little goofy sounds that you hear off in the distance, them squawking away. We made it to Daniels Island. It's a high island. It's pretty high up off of the high tide line. Let's figure out how to get onto it, because this is not the way. I'm not really excited about fighting to land there. Maybe at low tide it's a little bit easier, but it's a bit tricky. It's really deep and it's really jagged rocks. It's one thing if it's like round boulders. There's another spot on this side that I'm gonna see if it is as deep. If it wasn't quite as deep and I felt like I could get my feet out of the boat without without sinking in, it might be a different story. So the intel on Daniels might be tricky if it's not low tide. Let me show you what we're working with here on the best landing area on Daniels. Not too harrowing, but not easy. May have been a bit optimistic to come all the way out here, because I'm noticing that low light starting to happen in the winter, alerting me to get home. But it's a really, really pretty little island. If you can navigate the tricky landing, you will be rewarded with a really pretty campsite. It feels really calm and secluded out here. Some spots up on the top of the hill to camp, but then there's a spot here a little closer to shore that might also be a really great campsite. You would get amazing sunrises and amazing sunsets from this location. It's hard to tell if I chose the best landing. The boulders here are a little rounder, but it's still not great. I'm really impressed with this little island. I'm glad I landed. I was second guessing myself, like, it's not worth it. I'll, swing around, get some shots of the island, and then go to my next spot. But I'm glad I scrambled out. It's really, really pretty out there. I could see myself enjoying a sunset from the vestibule of my tent, looking over Wohoa and Western Bay. There's a solid 30 seconds there where I was really contemplating just going around, getting a look at it, and heading to my next island, because the landing just looked a little bit more than I felt like managing. But I got over myself, and I think it's the prettiest spot I've been to today. Partially because I think it's a little further away from town. I would say the last thing I wish I knew as a novice paddler was to pay more attention to building up a bomb-proof way to get back in my boat, to really focus on my rescue skills. I'd read some things and I'd practiced once or twice using the paddle float, and it was really hard, and I feel like I barely got back in my boat the few times I did it. Instead of, I need to be able to, no matter if it's at the end of the day, no matter if the water's cold, can I still get back into my boat? It's also, I think, building up a repertoire of rescues. These are all things that I wish I was practicing more then. I practice it quite a bit now, maybe not on a day like today when it's a little bit colder, but in the summer, pool sessions during the winter, there are any number of ways to really kind of build up your repertoire of this, that I know that if I capsize I'm going to get back in my boat. Now, my preferred way of doing it is my roll. And there's a whole journey around learning a roll and learning it on both sides and doing it in calm conditions and doing it in rough conditions. So there's a whole universe around the roll. And I think a lot of people think the roll is the end all be all. Like, I can't go out to that island in those really rough conditions unless I have a roll. And yeah, the truth is, like, it's fast. You're back in your boat really quickly. But I think the reality is you just need a way to get back in your boat. That is, I think, a skill set that I didn't have enough focus on as a new paddler. Okay, well, I think coming into view is our last island of the day, Sparrow. So let's go check it out. Sparrow's a nice tall island. There's a big stand of trees on it. Looks like black spruce and some balsam firs. And on the edge, on the south, there's this really perfectly placed tent platform. We're within the hour of high tide, maybe even the half hour of high tide. And it is a little bit more gnarly to land on at this time of the tide. This might have been just a drive-by. Well, friends, I think we have a bit of a Daniels situation here on Sparrow Island. The landing is even more tricky. It's doable. I think there's a spot on the north side of the island that you could scramble out and get off. It's pretty tricky at high tide, and it's a little bit more than I think I feel like doing right now, given the temperature and given the time of day and given the minor but non-inconsequential gel coat repair that would need to happen to get the boat up enough so it doesn't seal lock itself back in. I hope you enjoyed seeing the 4 islands we made our way to today and hearing a little bit about some of the things that I wish I'd known when I first started kayaking. If you're a seasoned kayaker, tell me about the things that you wish you knew. Let me know if any of the things that I shared resonated with you. If there's other things I'm really interested in hearing. If you're a new paddler, I hope there's a takeaway in here for you. Tell me about what you thought. And if you like this kind of thing, there are other videos of me going on adventures, going on camping trips, exploring this beautiful, beautiful coastline. I hope you check those out, and I hope you tell me what you think on those. All right, friends. Well, we're going to wrap this one up here. I'm going to make my way back upriver and back to the landing. But until next time, I hope you enjoy your adventures, whatever they are. I hope you get nourishment and enjoyment from whatever you get into. And until next time, safe paddling. All right. Bye, everybody.